Sister had an affair when pregnant and planned to divorce her husband after receiving child support. So I revealed her at her baby shower, and my parents attempted to end my marriage. I'd want to begin by noting that my parents never treated me 33F or my sister, Mary 26F, differently throughout my upbringing. Despite our huge age disparity, they were always consistent in their love, care, and attention to both of us. From what I remember, there was no favoritism or special treatment. While Mary and I were not best friends, we got along well. As the elder sibling, I never battled with her and simply let her do what she wanted. I'm sharing all of this to give you an understanding of my family dynamics because what follows really surprised me. You know, my sister married 2 years ago in a gorgeous, lavish wedding that my parents kindly paid for. It was all she'd hoped for, and she married her college love, Jack. They'd been together for years, and getting married felt like a logical next step. Watching them exchange vows was a pleasant event for us. From the outside, everything in their relationship appeared to be ideal. Everyone, including me, was ecstatic to see them take this step in life. I was truly thrilled for her, since it seemed like she'd finally gotten everything she desired. They planned to establish a family after their wedding, as do many couples. I knew they had been trying to become pregnant for quite some time, but had encountered some difficulties. It was difficult to watch her go through that, especially given her desire to become a mother. However, only a few months ago, everything changed. She tested positive and discovered she was pregnant. My sister and Jack were over the moon. They'd been waiting for this news for what seemed like an eternity. I remember feeling so happy for them because I knew how much they wanted it. It seemed like their lives were finally coming into place. I've been married to my husband, Cleo, for 6 years and have a little boy together. Motherhood has been a great adventure for me, and I was overjoyed that my sister will soon be able to experience it as well. She's always been a caring and attentive aunt to my kid, and I know she'll make an excellent mother. I was looking forward to our children growing up together, becoming best friends, and developing a relationship stronger than our own. I imagined family reunions where they would be inseparable, and I believed this would bring my sister and me even closer. We handled motherhood side by side. Everything appeared wonderful, and I was convinced we were about to embark on a new, exciting chapter in both of our lives. That's why I was so surprised when Mary called one day to inform me that one of her high school ex-boyfriends, David, had contacted her after all these years. She appeared delighted by the scenario, laughing as she told how he found out about her pregnancy and congratulated her. When they started conversing, they ended up reuniting. Hearing David's name made me feel nervous. My thoughts drifted back to the past. I recalled David from high school, and I never liked him. In fact, from what I could remember, he was nothing but trouble. He was always performing pranks, frequently getting into trouble with the school officials. He was suspended more times than I could count, and his reputation was not good. What made things worse was his past with Mary. I distinctly remembered David cheating on her, and not just with anybody. It was with one of her best pals. That treachery had destroyed Mary back then. She'd spent several nights weeping. She was distraught, and it took her a long time to recover from the agony he inflicted. With all of this in mind, I instantly shared my ideas with her. I reminded her of what he had put her through. I made it apparent that I believed he was terrible news, just as in high school. I honestly feel that after so many years, there was no need for her to entertain him again, especially considering their past. But to my astonishment, Mary did not appear bothered. In fact, she dismissed my concerns as if they didn't matter. She informed me that all of this had happened years ago, and that David had matured since then. She said that he had grown into a responsible and mature individual. I wasn't persuaded, but she seemed eager about reconciling with him. She even indicated that David wanted to meet up with her, and she looked truly excited about the prospect. I did not enjoy it at all. Deep down, I wished she hadn't agreed to meet him, but I also recognized there was only so much I could say. So I chose to keep my lips quiet and pray that everything was well. Mary met with David as arranged and appeared to have a great time. She contacted me the next week, full of enthusiasm, to tell me everything about their meeting. She couldn't stop raving over David's attractive appearance and how much he had changed physically. She stressed how tall and muscular he had become, speaking with an excitement that made me uneasy. As I listened to her brag about him, I couldn't help but shake my head. It wasn't only how she praised his beauty that concerned me, she also appeared enthralled by the fact that he knew every aspect of her history. I asked Mary how her husband, Jack, felt about her meeting up with an old high school ex. There was a brief pause on the other end of the line, and I noticed a shift in her tone. She then stated that she had not spoken anything to him. When I asked her why, she said that if Jack found out about her meeting with David, he would be envious. This made me even more uncomfortable. Mary appeared to be withholding information from her spouse that she should have shared. She went on to rationalize her decision, claiming that Jack did not need to know everything about her life. That statement didn't set well with me. While I appreciate that every marriage has limits and personal space, concealing something like this, meeting up with an ex, especially one with such a tangled history from her spouse, felt inappropriate. I didn't want to dispute with my sister, so I assured Mary that as long as she didn't see David again, everything may be great. I hoped she would see that continuing to visit him was not a smart idea, especially if she intended to hide it from Jack. But to my amazement, Mary revealed that she had previously planned to see David for lunch the next day. She showed no guilt about it. In fact, she attempted to rationalize it by claiming that she was merely enjoying reuniting with an old face from her past, and that it was not a major problem. Mary continued to meet with David in secret for the following 2 months, despite the fact that she was still pregnant with Jack's kid. I thought it really worrisome that Jack was utterly unconscious of what was going on behind him. Mary would occasionally update me on her meetings with David, and it was evident to me that she was becoming more connected with him than she should have been. She spoke about him differently now. It was no longer casual, it seemed more intimate and emotionally linked. I could tell she was steadily crossing a line, which disturbed me tremendously. I brought the problem up with my husband, Cleo, since I wasn't sure what to do. I wanted to be sure I wasn't overreacting, but I also needed help. Cleo listened intently, and while he disagreed with Mary's actions, he believed that we should not intervene in her marriage. I reluctantly agreed with him, but that nagging sense of dread persisted. Something about the situation didn't seem right in my stomach, and I couldn't ignore it. Then, one evening, I was out with some friends having a casual night out when I strolled into a restaurant and noticed Mary seated with David. They were squeezed into a corner booth, almost concealed from plain sight. At first, I refused to believe it was them, but as I came closer, there was no mistake it. My heart plummeted as I saw my sister, fully unconscious of my presence, seated with David. They were toying with each other's fingers, laughing, blushing, and locking gaze in a way that suggested they were lovers rather than old acquaintances catching up. I was infuriated. The sight of them together made my blood boil. Every instinct in me wanted to march over to that table and face Mary right then. I was furious, not only for Jack, but for the way she handled the entire matter. But as much as I wanted to, I recognized that addressing her in public, in front of everyone, would create a commotion and most likely disgrace her. It was not the appropriate place or time for it. Instead, I made a hasty choice and silently took out my phone to get a few photos and videos of Mary and David together. I wanted indisputable proof if I was going to confront her about it later. Without concrete evidence, I knew she'd try to dismiss it or belittle the issue. However, what I witnessed was too apparent to ignore. After receiving the proof, I proceeded to seat with my companions in the opposite corner of the restaurant, attempting to be normal while processing what I had just observed. Inside, I felt ripped apart. I couldn't stop thinking about Jack, how dumb he was, how much he relied on Mary, the mother of his unborn child, and how this betrayal would pain him. I tried calling Mary many times that night, wanting to confront her, but she didn't answer. I was becoming more concerned by the minute. So I decided to contact Jack and check in on her. When I inquired where Mary was, he nonchalantly said that she was enjoying a girls' night out with one of her best friends. I felt a strong sense of remorse and resentment since I knew she was most likely with David. I gently questioned him, asking whether he was certain Mary was with her friend, but he simply chuckled, entirely unaware. He said, "Why wouldn't she be? Jack had no reason to distrust her, and it ached to see how insensitive he was to the circumstances." I felt terrible for him, knowing the truth but unable to reveal it, at least not now. I knew I couldn't spring that type of bombshell on him without first speaking with Mary. I needed to hear her side of the story and figure out what was going on before making any hasty decisions. Mary contacted me again the next day, oblivious that I already knew everything. She spoke normally, even cheerfully, as if nothing were wrong. I decided to test the waters by asking her what she had been doing the previous evening. Without hesitation, she began lying. She told me she was out with her closest buddy, enjoying drinks. I couldn't help but be frustrated as I listened to her make up a tale and pretend everything was okay. I sneered and ordered her plainly to quit lying to me. I didn't mince words when I informed her I had seen her with David at the restaurant the night before. There was a pause on the other end of the line, and I could hear her deep breathing. Mary didn't try to refute it. And she became silent, perhaps recognizing she had been discovered, and there was no sense in lying any longer. I took a big breath and encouraged her to stop what she was doing and consider the ramifications, particularly for her pregnant kid. I told her that by doing this, she was compromising the future of her whole family, not just Jack. I was stern in telling her that whatever was going on with David had to stop immediately. I could see my remarks had shaken her, but I wasn't sure if she was sincerely contrite or simply taken off guard. All I knew was that I couldn't allow her to continue this romance in secret. It was now up to her to decide whether she would set things right or let everything to fall apart. However, Mary grew protective and indignant. Her voice became sharper as she said that I had no right to lecture her about her life. She stated that during her pregnancy, she had certain demands and cravings that only David could satisfy. Hearing those words made me want to vomit. She kept telling me that she understood precisely what she was doing and that I didn't comprehend the nuances of her marriage. She said that David was sparing her from a dull and unfulfilling life. It was shocked to hear her say that. Mary had never voiced displeasure with her marriage till David resurfaced. However, she suddenly became overwhelmed with complaints. It seems like she was simply attempting to excuse the adultery in her thoughts by coming up with strange stuff. I pushed back, telling her that she had always praised Jack's loyalty, consideration, and kindness. Jack had been nothing but supportive and kind during their marriage. And if she had any problems or was uncomfortable, she should confront her husband rather than betray him. Cheating was not the answer. Instead of listening, Mary increased her voice, claiming that David knew her in a way that Jack never did, and that she had already devised a strategy for her future. Her tone sent shivers down my spine, so I asked her just what she meant. I dreaded the worst, and my concerns were verified. Mary revealed without hesitation that she did not intend to leave Jack until after the baby was born. She stated coldly that the timing was chosen since she didn't want to be blamed for the divorce if she sought to leave her spouse while pregnant. She also sought to ensure that she would get child support and a substantial alimony award. I froze when I heard this. She planned to take advantage of the circumstance, using the birth of her kid as leverage to obtain financial stability. I shook my head and told her outright that she sounded crazy. This was not the Mary they had known before. It seemed as if I was speaking to someone I didn't recognize. I reminded her of how devoted Jack had been to her throughout their relationship, how he remained by her through thick and thin, even during the most difficult moments. But Mary continued to argue that, while she loved Jack, it wasn't in a romantic manner anymore, and that their relationship had gotten old and boring. She stated she wanted to feel something thrilling again, which David provided. He made her feel alive in a way that Jack no longer could. I was enraged, but more importantly, I was devastated. Mary's strategy was clearly cruel, and I told her so. I advised her that treating her husband, Jack, so coldly while she planned to leave him was completely unjust. But she only sneered at me, dismissing everything I said and telling me that, as her sister, I only needed to support her. Mary continued to visit David for a few weeks after our talk. She would frequently lie to Jack, claiming that she was spending time with me or at a friend's house. She even started asking me to cover for her in case Jack phoned to check in. I was becoming tired of her irresponsibility. Every time she drew me into her web of deceit, I felt more conflicted. I wanted to help my sister, but how could I if what she was doing was so wrong? Her behavior was not only harming her marriage, it was also placing me in a bad situation. I did not want to be a party to her deception. Then, unexpectedly, Mary stated that she had prepared a baby shower to commemorate her baby's impending arrival. I nearly couldn't believe her chutzpah. How might a lady continue an affair with another guy when pregnant with her husband's child? Consider hosting a baby shower and acting like nothing is wrong. When I arrived for the baby shower, I saw how normal everything appeared on the surface. Mary and Jack were joyful, and if you didn't know the reality, you'd assume they were simply a normal, loving couple expecting their first kid. Mary appeared carefree, entirely dismissing the fact that she was having an affair. The image of her and Jack cutting a cake together to reveal the gender of their newborn, a boy, was heartbreaking. I felt a surge of joy knowing I was going to be an aunt. At the same time, I was overwhelmed with guilt about what I knew. Jack stood there, eager about their future together, fully oblivious of the treachery taking place right beneath his nose. It was heart-wrenching. Then, in the middle of the shower, I saw Mary excuse herself to take a phone call. She left into the other room, and when she returned, she nonchalantly informed me that it was David on the phone. He phoned because he missed her, and she had already made plans to meet him that night. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Right there, at her own baby shower, she was considering spending the night with another guy, and, as usual, she planned to deceive Jack by claiming she was staying at a friend's place while in reality she was going to be with David. I couldn't hold back any longer. I shook my head in surprise and told her straight out that the situation was getting out of control. But Mary, unaffected as ever, dismissed my fears. She told me I should relax and insisted that she understood what she was doing. Her nonchalance was irritating. At that time, I realized I had reached my breaking point. I could no longer remain silent or be part in Mary's deception. As I stepped back into the room following our talk, Jack saw something was wrong. Out of concern, he inquired about my well-being. My pulse was beating and my voice was trembling as I braced myself for what I knew I had to do. I looked around the room at all the familiar faces of our family, friends, and Jack himself, who was still unaware of the treachery going on around him. My sister Mary, who had always been so close to me, was quietly shaking her head, begging with me to remain silent and continue covering for her. But I realized this was my moment to come clean, speak the truth, and relieve myself of this load. With shaking voice, I told Jack that he needed to know something. I took a big breath before confessing everything. Mary had been having an affair. The room became silent as everyone looked to me, their expressions filled with perplexity. I described everything my sister had been doing to behind Jack's back, including how she had pushed me and her pals to cover for her. I broke down and apologized to Jack for not admitting it sooner. The room exploded in disbelief, and I could see everyone attempting to digest what they had just heard. My mother's face contorted in amazement as she demanded to know what I was discussing. She went to Mary, who remained frozen, and inquired whether it was true. Mary pretended she didn't understand what I was saying. I then took out my phone and showed everyone the photos and texts I'd taken as evidence of Mary's affair with David. I didn't want to disgrace her, but the truth needed to be revealed. I then told Jack about her intention to leave him after the kid was born in order to get alimony and child support without taking responsibility for the divorce. Jack's eyes widened in surprise as he looked at the photos of Mary and David together, as well as the messages that confirmed their relationship. Then Jack and Mary got into a huge dispute. At first, Mary tried to deflect and deny everything. When confronted with overwhelming evidence, she eventually broke down and revealed everything. The treachery was too much for Jack to take. He was heartbroken. Finally, the proof I presented assisted Jack in the months-long divorce process. When Mary eventually gave birth to their son, Jack insisted on a paternity test, and only when it was determined that he was the father did he agree to pay child support. During the divorce procedures, however, the court found that due to Mary's adultery, he was not compelled to pay alimony. It was quite difficult for me to witness my sister confront the repercussions of her decisions throughout those months. I knew telling the truth was the correct thing to do, but I didn't expect the blowback from my own family. Instead of holding Mary accountable for her behavior, my parents directed their rage and resentment against me. They were enraged, accusing me of destroying Mary's happiness for spite and envy. They continued saying that family is family, and that I should have kept my sister's secret, no matter how bad her acts were. I was taken aback by how much they immediately favored my sister above me, which they had never done before, and I even began to doubt myself, wondering if I had made the correct decision by exposing her. However, things became even worse when my parents and Mary, in their desperation and irrational rage, attempted to undermine my own marriage. My parents really contacted my husband, Cleo, and demanded that we split. They reasoned that because I forced Jack to divorce Mary, I deserved neither a spouse nor a happy marriage. In fact, Dad told Cleo that he always thought he was too good for me, and my mother agreed with him. They seemed to want to see me suffer in the same manner they thought Mary had suffered, despite the fact that Mary's decisions had led to her collapse. Fortunately, Cleo did not take them seriously, laughing at the silliness of their request and dismissing it instantly. He understood I had behaved out of compassion for Jack, and he was outraged by my parents' attempts to destroy our marriage for spite. Then Mary attempted to concoct an elaborate lie, claimed that she had discovered me cheating with a man from my office, and that I was the one who always pushed her to cheat during her marriage. She was determined to turn the tables on me and smear my reputation. But my spouse knew they were all falsehoods. Her attempt to discredit me failed spectacularly, and it just made me more upset with how far my family would go to punish me for doing the right thing. Everyone but my spouse was too preoccupied with their misplaced desire to marry to see the broader picture, for the benefit of my personal mental wellness. I took the difficult decision to maintain no touch with my family. Cutting them out of my life was difficult, but it was essential. I needed to maintain my calm and sanity. My husband and I went ahead, stronger than ever, and I took comfort in the idea that I had stuck to my values, even if it meant standing alone. After 8 months of no communication, my parents unexpectedly emailed me yesterday. I had banned them everywhere, except for Gmail, which I must have neglected. They recognized that they were foolish to blindly back Mary. They stated that they had been too concerned with safeguarding her because she was the youngest, and seeing her in distress prompted them to act without thinking. This was something I had always hoped they would realize one day, but after everything they had done to me, I didn't expect it to happen. They also mentioned that Mary, who had moved back in with them following her divorce, had also brought David in with her. Apparently they were noisy, disrespectful, and did not assist my parents with any payments, with 2 additional family members. My mother had to do much more housework because no one else assisted. Mary was also forcing my parents to watch her son while she went out to spend time with David. As a result, my parents were at their wits' end and reached out to me, nearly asking me to help them. They had written that I should assist them in speaking with Mary, who refuses to listen to them, and arranging for her and her new family to leave promptly. AITA, what if I refuse to aid my parents after everything they've done to me? Update 1. Here's my thoughts. After all that has transpired, I believe my parents are just reaching out to me because they realize I am the only person who can assist them and have no one else to turn to. However, I am not eager to assist them. These were the same folks who had abandoned me, attempted to destroy my marriage, and labeled me a traitor simply for speaking the truth. They now want my assistance because they are unable to manage the individual they have decided to defend. Because of their folly, my sister and her affair partner are now pretending to be a happy family while living for free in my parents' house. I've also contacted Jack and informed him of the troubles that my parents are experiencing as a result of Mary and David. I begged him to guarantee that his children are not ignored at their home, and he told me that he would check into it. Update 2. Thank you for your suggestions. I was about to ignore my parents' email when my father sent me another one. This time, he accused me of abandoning him and his mother by failing to support them in their hour of need. He stated they were hurting financially and asked if I could send them $200 per month because I have such a good career. He said that this would greatly benefit them. Reading this made me enraged and I felt compelled to respond, even if just to put an end to it. I'm just copying and pasting what I replied back to him. Dad, you and Mom have shown to be the worst types of parents. How dare you beg for my aid after attempting to destroy my marriage only? A few months earlier, Ari lied and made up tales about me and a coworker to trick my husband into believing I was cheating, and you and your mother stood by her without question. None of you even saw how harshly I was punished just for doing the right thing. Now you're asking me for money because your beloved daughter and her affair partner are causing difficulties in your home? You deserve everything that happens to you. You dug your grave, now lie in it. P.S. Cleo and I are doing fantastic. My son does not miss you at all, and Cleo's parents are far better grandparents than you and Mom could ever be. I'm hoping that reading this email will permanently silence them. Update 3. Hello, Redditors. It has been 4 months since my previous update. After I sent my last email to my parents, they left me alone, which was a relief. According to some relatives, things between Mary and my parents have gotten much worse. Mary attacked my mother after a heated disagreement about her son's care. My mother had been pressing Mary to spend more time with the kid, and Mary saw this as an insult, resulting in the fight. The police had to be summoned, but no charges were made. Following that, some of our relatives assisted my parents in forcibly removing Mary and David from their house. Hearing about these incidents gives me a feeling of comfort and affirmation. I'm delighted I'm no longer a part of the drama. My parents are definitely facing the repercussions of their decisions. While it's unfortunate that things have turned out this way, I've learned to prioritize my own health and happiness. My husband and I are now arranging a trip to relax and spend quality time together, since we haven't had the opportunity to do so in a while.